And we're gonna practice a skill now that is really helpful to have when you're paddling with a group. You should always really be with a group of people. So this skill is basically if you or your friend, they fall out and maybe they can't get back into their boat and they have to swim to shore. What do you think is going to happen to their boat if they swim to shore and their boat's over in the middle of the river?
Today it's going to blow up river.
It might blow up river today.
It might blow up river.
It usually would go down river.
Yeah, these are can get caught by the wind really easily and they go really fast because they're right on the top surface of the water. And so these boats can really get going really fast down the river. It would always first priority is the humans in your group, make sure that your friends and yourself are safe. But if you have that covered, you really want to then start focusing on the gear. Because if you don't have your gear, you're going to have to get off the river and maybe hike out to the road or who knows. So this skill that we're going to practice is called bulldozing a boat or pushing a boat into an eddy. So basically, it'll be you, I'll demo it first, and then you guys can all try it out. But you're going to be in the boat, there'll be a unmanned boat just floating. And what you're going to try to do, can I use your boat this time?
Yep.
It's this boat. Well, let's use mine. If my boat is floating like this, you're going to try to, this guy's boat is the rescuer, you're going to try to hit it on the broadside like this and bump it to the shore, preferably in an eddy with a slow spot in the river, so that it will stop moving downriver. It's a lot harder than it sounds, because the water's moving, you're moving, but so sometimes you'll bump it with the bow or the stern, but you can usually do the best if you try to bump it right on the side seat right there. If at ever you're feeling like you're unsafe and you need to focus on your safety, stop focusing on trying to rescue the boat and just make sure that you're okay. I've had it happen where I'm trying to rescue a boat and not really looking downstream and I go over into a little hole and then that could easily make two boats and another person in the river. So you always want to focus first on your own safety and then try to get the gear. So I'll do a little demo. Hold this boat for a moment. Okay. Hitting the boat with my paddle to try to make it go the right way. So that's another tool that you have. If you're like, oh no, I need to swing and like the water. Another thing that might happen too is there might be a paddle. So if you have a paddle and a boat, what you can do is try to paddle. I'll kind of demo with both paddles at the same time. Or if you're close enough to shore, you can try to javelin the paddle to the shore. Okay, another skill to practice is towing a boat with a leash. And when you bring in a leash that also has certain precautions to it, because you're bringing in a rope or some type of webbing into the river, which if not handled correctly could be a hazard. So you never want to, I'll get out a leash. So a leash, I just have basically a piece of webbing with a locking carabiner on one side. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to, if I'm trying to get this boat to shore and I'm having trouble bumping it, I might want to clip onto it so I can get it to shore in it's still kind of hard, but in a easier manner. I've been on a river before where I tried to bump a boat into an eddy for like 15 minutes and really wished I had a leash on me or something I could strap to it because it just was so hard to get it out. And so if this boat is in the river and I'm trying to get to it, I could take a locking carabiner, clip it to it, lock it. Oh, this one's rusty. And it's pretty hard to do when you're like in moving water, but you do want to lock the carabiner. And then with the other end, you don't want to like carabiner this to your life jacket or anything, because what can happen is if her boat, if I'm trying to paddle it across the river and her boat gets stuck in a strainer or in a jungle of rocks, that's going to create tension on me. I'm not going to be able to get where I need, and I might even then swim and get caught underwater. So that can be a big hazard. So what you want to do is just hold on to the end of the leash. That way, if you need to let go, you can just easily let go, and her boat will have their own adventure. You can try to get into it later. Again, the first thing to focus on is your own safety. So if you are trying to leash a boat and ferry it across the river, if at any time you feel like you're going to tip over and you don't feel safe, you can just let go and take care of yourself. A situation where I found it really handy to do this was up in Canada. We were running a river and a bunch of people swam and their boats ended up on the opposite side of the river as they did, and it wasn't really safe for them to swim across. And so what we did was this: we put a carabiner on and ferried their boats across the river so that they could then keep paddling. So that's kind of a realistic moment that you might use this. We're usually, especially like on this stretch of river, you're mostly just going to use the Bulldoze. But I'll kind of demo this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ferry this boat across the river, and then I'll ferry it back and just kind of show you how I'm holding this. It's actually quite a bit harder than it sounds, so remember correctly. But I'll kind of demo, and it'll just kind of be behind me. Hopefully. Bye! See you, bye! After doing that, I think I might have a longer leash next time, just make it a little bit easier. So you can kind of play around with trying on some nice flat water and see how it feels. And like, it was bumping my boat a lot, so maybe just an extra foot or two would be nice. But you don't want it too long that it can get caught on stuff.
It looked like you chose deliberately to have the lanyard on one hand or the other, depending on which side you were going across.
Funny, I wasn't planning on it, and then I felt it made sense to have the hand, the rib that is going out into the current, just so that this doesn't get wrapped around me at all if I let go. And I think I think that I don't quite remember if that's in the training, but it felt intuitive and it felt safer that way to have that on that side.